All right, welcome back. Another set of RBT exam practice questions today. It's going to be a good mixture to really test where you're at in a wide range of terms for the RBT exam. So hope you enjoy. If you are enjoying my videos, please like and subscribe. It supports me. If you need study materials, check out our website or one of these links, which I'll put in the comments and descriptions below. Any questions, email me, leave a comment, and I'm happy to help and get back to you. Other than that, keep studying hard and let's get into it. Okay, kick it off with a graphing question because I give RBTs and potential RBTs so much anxiety. But I keep telling you guys that you shouldn't be worried about them, okay? Once you understand one line graph, you understand every line graph. That's the great thing about line graphs, okay? They're very consistent. They're very easy to read, okay? So this question asks, which of the following best represents the y-axis? Okay, first things first, what is the y-axis? Okay, is it the one down here, okay? Or is it on the side to the left, okay? The y-axis is going to be to the left. It's going to be the vertical axis, okay? So which one of these best represents that? Is it time, baseline, frequency, or data path? Well, where does time go? In your line graph, where do we measure time? Where do we record time? Time goes on the x-axis at the bottom, okay? So sessions, hours, days, minutes, okay? Passage of time goes on the x-axis, okay? So A is out. B, baseline. Baseline is not a y-axis or x-axis thing. It's just the type of data we take, okay? Your baseline data is represented by data points 1, 2, and 3, okay? Before intervention occurs, we take data that is baseline data, okay? Baseline data goes on the y and the x-axis if you want to look like that, right? Because there's still a passage of time and there's still a y-axis, okay? Your baseline data will be represented by data points 1, 2, and 3. So that's not it. Frequency. Yes, okay? So why is it frequency? Well, because the measurement or the recording of the behavior goes on the y-axis, okay? So if we're measuring the rate of the client screaming, all right, on the y-axis, we would have our frequency, okay? So let's say, for instance, data point 1 represents 1 minute, okay? We would have 2 instances of screaming on the y-axis and then 1 minute. So our rate would be 2 per minute, okay? So your behavior that you're tracking always goes on the y-axis, all right? And then data path is just these lines that connect your data points, okay? So the answer is frequency. Remember, y-axis is behavior, x-axis is time. Okay, whenever you grab something from the refrigerator to cook dinner, your hands are full, making it difficult to close the fridge door. Sometimes you bump it with your hip, sometimes you close it with your elbow, and sometimes you kick it closed with your foot. What best represents this scenario? So what represents the scenario of you closing the fridge door in many different ways? In other words, many responses, okay, serving a similar function for one stimuli. If you've been watching my videos, okay, if you've been going over your task list, you should know this one just based on what I said. Again, multiple responses for a single stimuli. What is that? Is that stimulus generalization, response generalization, differential reinforcement, or task chaining? Well, always try to eliminate answers you know are wrong, okay? So we know it's not task chaining. There's no chain going on, okay? If we are looking at how you're cooking dinner and your steps, right? The steps you take to cook dinner, maybe, right? But this is not a task chain, okay? Differential reinforcement. Are we putting one behavior on extinction and reinforcing another? No, right? We're just looking at the behavior of you kicking the door closed or bumping the door closed, okay? There's no differential reinforcement going on. So that leaves us with stimulus generalization and response generalization. What is stimulus generalization? Stimulus generalization is engaging in one response across multiple stimuli, okay? So you can sit on a chair, you can sit on a bed, you can sit on the floor, right? One response of sitting across these multiple stimuli. Response generalization is the opposite, right? It's engaging in multiple responses for one stimuli. So in this instance, you bump the door, you kick the door, and you elbow the door. 3 responses for one stimuli of the door, okay? The answer is response generalization. These two terms are difficult, okay? So if you don't understand these, save them for last in your prep is my recommendation, okay? Once you understand them right, they become a lot easier, but even BCBAs still struggle to kind of grasp this concept, okay? It's kind of hard to really understand, okay, unless you put a lot of time into it. So if you don't understand these, okay, work on it, right? But maybe save it for last in your prep, okay? But the answer here is response generalization. All right, during discrete trial training, you'll work with your client for 3 minutes on matching targets before giving them a break as reinforcement. You then will work with your client for 5 minutes on communication targets before giving them a break. Finally, you work with your client for 4 minutes before giving them a break. What reinforcement schedule best represents what you're doing? Is it FI3, FI5, VI4, or VI3? So what can we eliminate? Well, they're all interval schedules, okay? So that's correct because we're looking at a time schedule. But is our time changing or is it staying consistent? Our time is changing. So immediately you can eliminate A and B because that's fixed, right? But we're not fixed. We're on a variable schedule. So it's the V. So now what? Well, we know it's an average, right? So variable schedules mean on average, okay? How are you going to find the average? Well, you're going to add up your minutes, okay? So you're going to take 3 plus 5 plus 4. It's going to give you 12. And then you divide that by the total amount of breaks, which is 3, and you get 4, okay? So on average, you provided reinforcement every 4 minutes. And that is what a VI schedule means. On average, I provide reinforcement every so-and-so minutes, okay? Fixed interval, the time doesn't change. Variable interval, the time changes. Think about that for a second and understand, okay, on a fundamental level, how this question works, okay? You're taking all the different reinforcements, okay, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, all the times, adding them up, getting the average, okay? And that, okay, is your variable interval schedule, okay? So the 4 in this represents minutes, right? All right. Each night you like to enjoy a cup of tea before bed. You grab your electric kettle, take off the top, put water into it, and then set it on the boiler to 212 degrees. After 5 minutes, the water is ready and the kettle beeps. You pour the water over the tea. The beep represents what? All right, a lot going on, okay? The behavior questions give people trouble, okay? Because they fail to identify what we're looking for, okay? Because there's so much going on here, right? There's a lot of different behaviors, a lot of different situations. What are we looking at? We're looking at the beep. We're looking at the kettle beeping, okay? So immediately identify who is doing the behavior, right? And then what are we looking at in this situation? We're looking at the kettle beeping, and you're engaging in the behavior, okay? So the kettle beeps, what happens right after? Right after the kettle beeps, okay, you pour the water over the tea. So what does the kettle beeping represent? Is it an MO, a motivating operation, for pouring the water over the tea? Well, you always want to pour the water over the tea, right? But you have to wait until the water's ready, okay? So the water's not there yet. The motivation to pour the water over the tea is there, right? But the water isn't ready, okay? So it's not an MO because it's not making you want it. It's not altering the value of pouring the water, right? You already want to do that. The motivation's there, right? B, the SD for pouring the water over the tea. Yes. What is the kettle beeping signaling? Well, it's signaling the water is ready, okay? And so when the kettle beeps, antecedent, your behavior, you pour the water over the tea, right? And the consequence is you get tea, right? So the kettle beeping is the SD, okay, for pouring the water over the tea, and it's signaling to you, okay, reinforcement is now available in form of the tea, okay? If you were to pour the water over the tea when it's not boiling, there's no reinforcement in form of tea, okay? The reinforcement and the consequence for you pouring the water over the tea is you get hot tea, right? Therefore, the kettle beeping is the SD signaling that hot tea is now available. Okay. What about the antecedent to drinking tea? Well, no, the kettle beeping is not the antecedent to drinking tea because you still need to pour the water over the tea, okay, and then pour the tea, and etc. Okay, there's more antecedents before drinking the tea. Antecedent, what occurs right before the behavior. Okay, the kettle beeping occurred right before you pouring the water. Okay, and then the consequence of grabbing the kettle. Well, no, you grab the kettle, right, and you put the water in it, right, but that's the kettle beeping comes before you grabbing the kettle. Okay, so it's not the consequence to grabbing the kettle, right? It's the antecedent. So the answer here is the SD for pouring the water over the tea. The kettle beeping signals, okay, reinforcement is now available in the form of tea, okay? Because kettle beeps, you pour the water over the tea, you have hot tea, all right? Tough question. I mean, that's a tough behavior question, okay? But it's a good one, right? So think about it and understand it. Which of the following is required to renew your status as an RBT? So annually, you need to renew your status as an RBT. What is required of you to do this? A, 5% of your service hours per month must have been supervised. Yes, okay. At least 5% of the hours you work as an RBT per month have to be supervised, okay? So whatever company you work for should have something in place to help you with this, either a tracking system or a manual tracking system. They should have something set up, okay? Because this is their requirement as an RBT. You have to get 5% of your hours supervised. So if you work 100 hours, you need 5 hours of supervision, okay? B, you must complete the RBT competency assessment. Yes, every time you renew your RBT, you have to retake the competency assessment, okay? So when it comes time to that, make sure you check out my video, okay? Because I go through the whole thing, right? So I think that'll be helpful. But you have to do that every time you renew your status. C, you must submit a renewal application. That is true as well, okay? So you have to do all these things, plus you have to pay a fee to renew your status as an RBT. So the answer is D, all of the above. We describe behavior in terms of how it looks and what purpose it serves for the person engaging in the behavior. Which of the following describes how a behavior looks? All right, so I like putting these in here, okay? Because they're straightforward only if you know your terms and you know your definitions. Not every test on the exam is hard, okay? Some of the questions are really easy and you should be answering them quickly. This is a question that is really easy and you should be answering quickly. If you cannot answer this question quickly, you need to spend more time on your terms, on your definitions, okay? Reviewing the study guide, going over flashcards, reviewing terms, okay? All this question is asking is, what describes how our behavior looks? And you should immediately know it's topography. Topography is how a behavior looks. The function is what purpose the behavior serves or why the behavior is happening, okay? Simple as that. Visual analysis has to do with graphing. Automaticity has to do with the idea that you don't have to know you're being reinforced for reinforcement to work. Irrelevant to the question. All you need to know, okay, is topography describes how our behavior looks. Super simple question, should be super easy. You've been working with your client on getting dressed for 1 month. They previously demonstrated they were able to dress independently, but the behavior is inconsistent. Yesterday, the client's mom became impatient and assisted the client in putting their shirt on. Now the client won't put their shirt on unless someone helps. What answer best demonstrates this scenario? Okay, so this is something as a BCBA that drives me crazy, right? You know, you work really hard on the skill, and we're at the point now in this situation where they can do it. We just need to strengthen their ability to do it consistently, okay? What happened here was we took a step backwards, right? We know they can do it, and instead of being patient and letting them do it themselves, okay, so we can deliver reinforcement, we became impatient and we did it for them, okay? So what happened now? Well, A, the client has become prompt dependent, okay? So instead of doing it themselves, they are now dependent on prompts, okay, to put their shirts on or pants on or whatever it is, okay? Very tough situation, okay, because now we have to kind of restart. We have to work on fading the prompts, right? You kind of take a step backwards, okay? This is why you have to be very careful about delivering prompts, okay? Because prompt dependency, okay, the reliance on a prompt to engage in a behavior, okay, can be very tough to undo. And this is what happened here. The client's mom became impatient. She prompted the client, okay, putting their shirt on. Now the client waits for that prompt before putting their shirt on. So the answer is A. Okay, read all the answer choices, right? You want to look for the best answer. Maybe there's a better answer. B, the client should have been taught to use their words to ask for help. Possibly, but we don't know anything about the client. We don't know about their age, their skill level, anything. So B is just not a good answer in this situation. C, the mom engaged in unethical behavior when she interrupted your treatment. No, I mean, the parents are free and encouraged to participate in session. Okay, but of course they should be doing it properly, right? This, the client's mom probably did not mean to, okay? But unbeknownst to her, she has now set our program backwards a little bit, okay? But it's not unethical for her to engage or interrupt your treatment. D, this was a failure on the part of the RBT. They should prevent parent involvement when possible. No, that's not part of the RBT's responsibility. Now, when you get to the point of the relationship where you can ask the parent to step back and let you handle the behavior, okay, which is encouraged, right? You should really be the one handling behaviors and these type of things and leading, right? That's when you can get to this point. But preventing parent involvement altogether, okay, should not be something you should be doing, right? You want them involved. You want them learning what we're doing, okay? Just so happened the parent did the wrong thing here. And what happened? The client became prompt dependent. You've just been assigned a high priority case. The client is known to be aggressive towards RBTs and parents. Before you start the case, what should you make sure is in place? Okay, so you know the client's aggressive, okay? So what do you need to be sure there is in place or is written before you start? Is it A, punishment procedures for aggression, B, a crisis intervention plan, C, functional communication training procedures, or D, parent training procedures? Well, we know A is not right, okay, because we never start with punishment, right? We're a brand new case, so we never start with punishment, okay, so A is out. B, a crisis intervention plan. What is a crisis and what is a crisis intervention plan? Well, a crisis is when you, the client, or someone else is in danger. Reading about this case, it looks like there's a potential for a client to get aggressive and potentially put somebody in danger. So this warrants a crisis and it warrants a crisis intervention plan. How are we going to react, okay, in these situations? Before you start, you should know how you're going to react to aggression, okay? You should make sure your BCBA has a plan. So you have a plan, okay? This is one of those times where you need to really communicate and say, hey, if this happens, what do I do? What is our plan? Okay, so before you start, make sure you have a crisis intervention plan in place. All right, what about C, functional communication training procedures? Again, we don't know anything about the client, okay? So probably yes, right? But we're just not sure. We don't know anything about this case, okay? So C is just not a good answer here. And D, parent training procedures. Again, not your role as an RBT. Maybe the parent wants training, maybe they don't. You don't know the situation. I don't know the situation. So D is just not a good answer here, okay? The best answer is a crisis intervention plan. During an initial assessment, you're observing the new client. Your BCBA requests you take event recording data on several target behaviors. What will you be recording? All right, so they're asking you, what are you recording when you take event recording? What are you recording when you take event recording? Okay, it's hard to say. So again, if you know your terms, know your definitions, very easy. If not, you'll probably just be guessing, okay? So event recording, is it how long the target behaviors occur for, the time in between target behaviors, the antecedents and consequences for target behaviors, or the number of times the target behaviors occur? Well, how long the target behaviors occur, A, is duration, okay? Event recording is not duration. The time in between target behaviors, okay, is IRT. Event recording is not IRT. The antecedents and consequences for target behaviors is ABC data. Event recording is not ABC data. The number of times the target behaviors occur is frequency, which is event recording. So event recording just means frequency, how many times the behavior occurred. Easy question if you know your terms, if you know your definitions. Study those, okay? Bill is working at home with a client. Client's behavior function is attention seeking. Every 15 minutes, the client will slam a door and his dad will yell at him. Your BCBA tells you to provide attention to your client every 12 minutes throughout the entire session. This is called what? So we know your client slams doors every 15 minutes. So every 12 minutes, we're going to reinforce, okay, with attention, right? Is this negative reinforcement? Are we removing anything? No, we're giving attention, right? So A is out. B, extinction. Are we putting anything on extinction? Okay. Are we putting the door slamming on extinction? No, we're not talking about when he slams the door, right? We're talking about before slamming the door. Okay. So B is out. C, differential reinforcement of alternative behaviors. Are we reinforcing any particular behavior? Well, it doesn't look like it, right? All you're doing is providing attention every 12 minutes. Okay. There's no stipulation, right? There's no requirement. Just every 12 minutes you give attention. Okay. So we're not differentially reinforcing anything. Okay. What are we doing? We are non-contingently reinforcing. So remember, what is a contingency? A contingency is an if-then statement. If you do this, then you do this. Okay. So contingent reinforcement would be if you don't slam the door, then I give you attention. This situation is non-contingent. You're going to give attention no matter what happens. Okay. So regardless of what your client is doing at 12 minutes, you provide reinforcement. This is called non-contingent reinforcement. There is no requirement. There's no contingency. Okay. When we give non-contingent reinforcement, it has to do with motivating operations. Okay. We're trying to abolish the need for attention and therefore reduce door slamming. And that's the idea behind this procedure. Okay. You're applying to graduate school so you can start the process of becoming a BCBA. You're talking with your client's parents about it, and you tell them you need 2 referral letters. Your client's parents tell you they will write you a referral letter, but only if the client starts tolerating certain foods. If you agree to this arrangement, this will represent what? Okay, so an ethical scenario here where you need a referral letter, your client offers you to write one, only if something happens, right? So does this represent an exploitative relationship? No. Okay. An exploitative relationship usually has to do with the supervisor and the RBT, right? If they're taking advantage of you because of their position, right? That's exploitative. Now, if the parents told you that unless my son starts tolerating food, right, I'm going to report you to your company, then that's exploitative, right? Because they're taking advantage of their situation as the parent, right? Which they shouldn't be doing. This is not exploitative, right? It seems like it's very it's very friendly, okay? It's very amicable, very casual, okay? So it's not exploitative. B, an acceptable agreement. Is this acceptable? You promising that you'll get a client to start doing something in exchange for a letter, that's not acceptable, okay? That's unethical. This situation, what you're promising is okay, right? Tolerating certain foods is fine. But what if you promise that you'll get a client to do something else, right? You can teach them a variety of things with ABA, okay? And it might not always be the best things, okay? So this is not an acceptable agreement. Situation that isn't part of the RBT's role, okay? Well, you will be working on tolerating foods, right? So that's part of the RBT's role. Communicating with parents is part of the RBT's role, okay? So technically you are engaging in RBT work, okay? So C is not the best answer here, okay? D, conflict of interest, right? This is a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is when the principal party, so the RBT or the supervisor, okay, has an interest, right, in the outcome of this interaction. So it's in your best interest for the client to start tolerating certain foods if you want the referral letter. So why is that unethical? Well, because that can lead you to doing things that you shouldn't be doing to get the client to tolerate certain foods. If you really want that referral letter, right, you might get desperate and you might start doing things you shouldn't be doing to get the client to start tolerating foods, okay? Therefore, this represents a conflict of interest, which again is when you or a principal party or a BCBA or whoever has a vested interest, has an interest in the outcome of a scenario. Okay. All right. Hope you enjoyed. Okay. Go through those a few times. Make sure you're understanding them. If you're not, get back on the study guide. Okay. Look at those terms, look at those definitions, right? Any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. I'll be back Friday and then over the weekend, and then we'll do it all again next week. Okay. So keep studying hard, and I'll see you soon.